Hi friends, welcome to English Study Point. Today in this video lecture I am going to discuss a poem by John Dryden titled as Macflecknoe. This video is part number 2. So Macflecknoe is a mock heroic poem by John Dryden published in the year 1682. It satirizes the poet Thomas Shadwell and others, portraying their literary efforts as unimpressive. So here I am going with a line by line explanation of this particular stanza. So close to the walls which fair Augusta bind. So this refers to a location in London with Augusta, possibly symbolizing the city itself, suggesting something historical and significant. The fair Augusta much to peers incline. So this indicates that London, while beautiful, is also a source of anxiety or concern. An ancient fabric race that informed the site. So ancient fabric refers to a structure or building that was once prominent, aiming to catch the eye of onlookers. There stood of yore and Barbation it height. So this mentions the Barbican, which historically was a fortified outpost or defense tower, indicating it was once a significant presence. A watchtower once, but now so fate ordains. So the structure served as a watchtower in the past, but it has fallen into disuse and disappeared, reflecting change and decay. Of all the pile, an empty name remains. So now only the name of the structure exists, as it is in ruins and has lost its former glory. From its old ruins, brothel houses rise. So the poem describes how the ruins have given way to establishments like brothels, symbolizing moral degradation. Scenes of lewd loves and of polluted joys. So this reinforces the idea that the area is now associated with immoral activities and depraved pleasures. Where their vast courts, the mother's trumpets keep. So mother's trumpets refers to older women who run these establishments, indicating a hierarchy of corruption and undisturbed by watch in silence sleep. So there's a suggestion that these places operate without supervision, highlighting a lack of order or authority. Near these, a nursery erects its head. So contrasting the brothels, this line introduces a nursery, a place associated with innocence and potential, where queens are formed and future heroes bred. So this implies that this nursery is responsible for raising future leaders and distinguished individuals, where unfledged actors learn to laugh and cry. So young actors, still inexperienced, practice their craft here, suggesting that they hone their emotional expressions, where infant punks their tender voices try. So the term punks references young, possibly rebellious individuals experimenting with their identities and voices. And little Maximins the gods defy. So Maximins refers to a small bold figures who metaphorically challenge the divine, suggesting that even young children possesses a sense of ambition and audacity. So Dryden here juxtaposes decay and corruption with potential and innocence, creating a striking imagery of contrasting themes in the context of culture and literary aspirations. Now, heading on to another stanza, this stanza says, Great Fletcher never treads in buskins here. So this line references Fletcher, likely the playwright John Fletcher, suggesting that he wouldn't wear the elevated heroic attire buskins in this place, implying a lower or less noble literary setting. Nor Greater Johnson dares in socks appear. So Johnson refers to Ben Jonson, another prominent playwright. Here the socks symbolize a more comedic or lower form of theatrical presentation. Both playwrights represent high standards of literature which are absent here. But gentle Simpkin just reception finds. So here, gentle Simpkin refers to a lesser poet, possibly a stand-in for Thomas Shadwell, who receives a welcoming response in this literary landscape, highlighting the mediocrity of those who thrive here. Amidst this monument of vanished minds. So, the monument of vanished minds symbolizes the remnants of past literary greatness that have disappeared, suggesting that this locale is a shadow of its former glory. Pure clinches the suburban muse affords. So, clinches refers to clever puns or wordplay, suggesting that the lowly muse of the suburbs inspires simple or trivial writing rather than elevated themes. And Panton waging harmless war with words. So, Panton refers to a contemporary poet known for his wordplay. The phrase suggests he engages in light-hearted literary battles, emphasizing the triviality of their craft. Here, Flecknoe as a place to fame well known. So here references the setting of Flecknoe, likely referring to the fictional Flecknoe representing Shadwell, where it is assumed that one could gain literary fame. Ambitiously designed his Shadwell's throne. So Flecknoe is depicted as attempting to establish Shadwell's position as the king of dullness, portraying his ambitions for his protege in a mocking tone. For ancient Dekker prophesied long since. So Dekker refers to Thomas Dekker, an earlier playwright who supposedly had foretold the rise of Shadwell, adding a sense of history and legitimacy to their mediocrity. That in this pile should reign a mighty prince. So the pile alludes to the literary establishment or tradition, suggesting it will soon be ruled by a new significant figure, in this case Shadwell, born for a scourge of wit and flail of sense. So this indicates that Shadwell is born to be a force of mockery against wit and reason, emphasizing his dullness as a weapon against intelligence and creativity. To whom true dullness should some psyches owe? So true dullness depicts his primary quality. And psyches likely refers to foolish characters or a symbolic representation of the dullness he embodies. But walls of misers from his pen should flow. So this suggests that Shadwell's writings will produce a vast number of dull or greedy characters, the misers, emphasizing the mediocrity of his work. Humorists and hypocrites it should produce. So this line suggests that his writing would give rise to characters that embody hypocrisy and poor humor, emphasizing a theme of insincerity. Whole Raymond families and tribes of Bruce. So Raymond families and tribes of Bruce refer to specific characters or archetypes that represent the mediocrity and buffoonery that would flourish under Shadwell's reign, symbolizing his unworthy legacy. So this excerpt satirizes the literary world, particularly mocking the dullness of contemporary writers represented by Shadwell, while contrasting them with the higher standards set by earlier playwrights. So Dryden's use of irony and playful language communicates our disdain for mediocrity in literature. Now, Empress Fame had published the renown. So, Fame personified as an empress has publicly announced the reputation or achievements of Shadwell, setting the stage for his coronation. Of Shadwell's coronation through the town. So, the event being discussed is Shadwell's coronation, which is taking place in the town, drawing attention and attendees. Roused by report of fame, the nations meet. So the news report of Shadwell's fame has stirred nations to gather, highlighting the significance of the event. From near Bun Hill and distant Watling Street, people are coming from both nearby Bun Hill and far off Watling Street locations, signifying the wide impact of the announcement. No Persian carpets spread the imperial way. So instead of luxurious Persian carpets one would expect for a grand occasion, the scene is grim, indicating a lack of grandeur, but scattered limbs of mangled poets lay. So the imagery switches to a dark, violent scene with the remains mangled limbs of poets scattered, symbolizing the harm done to the literary community. From dusty shops, neglected authors come. So, the neglected authors, possibly representing lesser known writers, are emerging from their dusty shops, indicating their readiness to participate despite neglect. Martyrs of pies and relics of the bum. So this line humorously references the struggles of writers. Martyrs suggests they have sacrificed for their art, and relics of the bum refers to the unfavorable treatment they receive, bad reviews or patronage. Much Haywood, Shirley, Ogley, there lay. So the mention of the named authors Haywood, Shirley, Ogleby indicates that their legacies are also present and perhaps disrespected, contributing to the grim scene. But loads of Shadwell almost chalked the way. So Shadwell's excesses are overwhelming the procession, suggesting that his influence or presence is so great that it's obstructive. Built stationers for yeomen stood prepared. So stationers, bulls. This means booksellers are ready but have been cheated. Built in some way, indicating financial or professional frustration in the literary market. And Herringman was captain of the guard. So Herringman, possibly a well-known publisher, is humorously given the title Captain of the Guard, further solidifying the parody of a royal coronation. The hoary prince in majesty appeared. So this line refers to Shadwell, the central figure described as a hoary prince, suggesting he is old and representing a certain literary tradition. High on a throne of his own labors reared. So Shadwell is portrayed as sitting on a throne made of his own works, illustrating a self-made prominence in the literary world. At the right hand, our young Ascanius sat. So this references to young Ascanius, possibly symbolizes a successor or someone who represents future literary hope, hinting at the continuity of Shadwell's influence. Rome's other hope and pillar of the state. Ascanius is tied to Rome, a metaphor for literary legacy and stability, indicating that he is viewed as an important figure supporting the literary empire. His brows thick fogs instead of glory's grace. So this description of Ascanius suggests a lack of true glory or talent, with thick fogs symbolizing confusion or mediocrity. And lambent dullness played around his face. So lambent dullness implies a lack of brilliance or insight, further emphasizing the theme of mediocrity present in the new generation of writers represented by Ascanius. So this excerpt from Meg Flecknoe by John Dryden satirizes the literary circles of the time, using vivid imagery and humor to critique mediocrity among poets and the absurdity surrounding Shadwell's coronation. So the combination of grandeur and grim details illustrates a fallen state of the literary world filled with both celebrated figures and ignored authors. As Hannibal did to the altars come. So this refers to Hannibal, the famous Carthaginian general who famously crossed the Alps to invade Rome, suggesting a powerful entrance or commitment to a cause akin to a sacrifice at altars, sworn by his sire, a mortal foe to Rome. So Hannibal swore an oath to oppose Rome, indicating that the speaker Shadwell also swears allegiance to a challenging cause, in this case perhaps to oppose wit and intelligence. So Shadwell swore, nor should his vow be vain. So Shadwell, a contemporary poet whom Dryden critiques, likewise takes an oath, asserting that his promise to uphold dullness will not be without purpose, so that he till death true dullness would maintain. Shadwell commits to promoting dullness in his work, emphasizing an unwavering dedication to mediocrity even at the cost of his life and in his father's right and realm's defense. So Shadwell is said to defend the legacy of his poetic predecessor, likely referring to Flecknoe in the domain of dullness, implying a duty to protect what he believes in, never to have peace with wit, nor truce with sense. So he vows never to coexist peacefully with intelligence or reason, suggesting a fierce opposition to cleverness and creativity. The king himself, the sacred unction made. So this line hints at that a king, perhaps a metaphor for a dominant figure in the realm of dullness, anoints or blesses Shadwell, suggesting a sacred or official recognition of his role as king by office and as priest by trade. So the king serves dual roles as a monarch and as a priest, implying a blend of authority and ritual that legitimizes his power in his sinister hand instead of ball. So the phrase suggests that in the king's left hand, sinister often meaning left, he holds something unconventional or unexpected instead of traditional royal orb, a symbol of power. He placed mighty mug of potent oil. So the king holds a mug of beer rather than a royal scepter, emphasizing a humorous or ridiculous twist on nobility, highlighting a celebration of baseness. Love's kingdom to his right he did convey. So to the king's right is the concept of love's kingdom, perhaps representing pleasure or affection, which contrasts with the dullness that Shadwell embodies at once his scepter and his rule of sway. So this suggests that the mug of ale serves as a symbol of power and authority over the kingdom of dullness, emphasizing that the king's influence is derived from indulgence, whose righteous lore the prince had practiced young. So the king has practiced the teachings or principles of the righteous lore since he was young, which could refer to the traditions of dullness and mediocrity, and from whose loins recorded psyche sprung. So here Dryden refers to the origins of creativity or narrative, suggesting that great stories or characters like Psyche emerged from this dull tradition, perhaps ironically. Now, here we see his temples last with poppies were overspread. Poppies symbolizes sleep or oblivion and are used here to suggest that the king's head is crowned with forgetfulness, reinforcing the theme of dullness. That nodding seemed to consecrate his head. So the poppies seem to nod, implying a state of sleep or lethargy, which symbolizes the blessing of dullness upon the king's head, making it seem holy or sanctioned, just at the point of time if fame not lie. So the speaker brings in the idea of a historical or mythical movement, challenging the reliability of fame and suggesting uncertainty about events being depicted. On his left hand, 12 reverend owls did fly. So owls, often symbols of wisdom, are ironically depicted flying around the king, perhaps suggesting that the wise avoid the domain of dullness or that the presence of wisdom contrasts sharply with the foolishness being celebrated. So Dryden uses here rich imagery and irony to paint Shadwell and by extension dullness and mediocrity, while also poking fun at the literary community of his time. Now here we see So Romulus, this sung by Tibur's Brook. Dryden opens by invoking Romulus, the legendary founder of Rome, situated by the Tiber River. This establishes a grand historical and mythological context for the poem. Presage of sway from twice 6 vultures took. So the phrase refers to the founding of Rome, where Romulus claimed kingship based on omens, specifically seeing 12 vultures twice 6. This resonates with themes of divine right and prophecy. The admiring throng loud acclamations make. So the crowd, amazed by Romulus' omen, cheers. This suggests the theme of public perception and acclaim, setting up a contrast with the mockery of the subject of Dryden's satire, Thomas Shadwell, and omens of his future impiety. So the people interpret the omens as indicators of Romulus' future greatness. This line conveys the idea of fate and destiny in leadership, establishing a serious tone that Dryden later undermines. The sire then shook the honors of his head. So the sire likely refers to Flecknoe himself. Shaking his head suggests disapproval or bewilderment, hinting at the absurdity of his position and the mocks of Dryden. And from his brows damps of oblivion shed. So this imagery indicates that Flecknoe, embodying mediocrity, dispels knowledge and wisdom, reinforcing his lack of talent. Oblivion suggests his legacy is one of forgetfulness. Full on the filial dullness long he stood. So Flecknoe stands over his son Shadwell, who is characterized as dull, the use of dullness emphasizing Shadwell's lack of intellectual and artistic ability, furthering the satire, repelling from his breast the raging god. So the raging god could symbolize inspiration or creativity, which Flecknoe as a poet cannot embrace due to his mediocrity. This line delineates the conflict between true poetic genius and blindness at length burst out in this prophetic mood. So Flecknoe, after a struggle, finally proclaims a prophecy. The tone shifts to a more serious and formal mode, mimicking prophetic styles often found in epic poetry. Heavens bless my son, from Ireland yet him reign. So this line invokes divine blessing for Shadwell, humorously suggesting a regal dominion, yet Ireland and Shadwell are synonymous with cultural and artistic mediocrity to far Barbados on the western main. So this line expands the geographical scope of Shadwell's influence, suggesting he will reach the Caribbean. However, it reinforces the absurdity as it implies even his works will fail to resonate globally. Of his dominion may know and be known. So he wishes for Shadwell's reign over literature to be boundless. This hyperbole illustrates the irony of a mediocre poet aspiring to an eternal legacy and greater than his father's be his throne. So Flecknoe desires Shadwell to surpass his own mediocre legacy. This is fittingly ironic as it foreshadows the failure of both father and son in the eyes of literary history. Beyond Love's Kingdom, let him stretch his pen. So Love's Kingdom could refer to romantic themes in literature. Dryden suggests Shadwell's work should extend into areas where he is ill-equipped, emphasizing his incompetence. He paused and all the people cried Amen. So the crowd responds affirmatively, further linking Shadwell's mediocrity to a misguided but overwhelming public acclaim, emphasizing the disconnect between talent and popularity. Thus continued he, my son, advance. So Flecknoe persists in his desire for Shadwell to succeed, using advance mockingly to highlight the absurdity of his aspirations. Still in new impudence, new ignorance. So Flecknoe ironically encourages Shadwell to continue his audacity and ignorance, suggesting that these traits define his work. This line encapsulates Dryden's critique of Shadwell's overconfidence in his abilities despite a lack of talent. So through these lines, Dryden humorously critiques Thomas Shadwell, using the mythological lens of Romulus to both elevate and diminish Shadwell's poetic aspirations, and the use of prophetic language and grand images contrast sharply with the reality of Shadwell's mediocrity, creating a satirical representation of how unremarkable talent can claim greatness. So Dryden's craft shines in weaving together themes of legacy, mediocrity, and public acclaim, effectively mocking the politics of literary fame during his time.